Greetings. Welcome to the Legend Sport Channel. My name's Joe. I'm your host, I guess I would say. Anyway, if you're a first time viewer, thanks for checking us out. Brand new channel. Hoping to, get some subscribers, get some views. Hopefully, make this a long term thing. Because I enjoy games. I hope you do too, and that's why you're here. And we're going to talk about some cool games, now and going forward, hopefully. And for my returning viewers, again, thank you for watching. My most recent video before this one on Highlight Maker Hoops, the viewer numbers were actually pretty good. It feels like we're gaining a little momentum. Maybe it could also be because it's a brand new game and people are interested in it. And I recommend the game. It's a good game. Watch the video if you would like more information and you haven't already seen it. This time I'm going to shift gears a little bit. I've concentrated largely on sports games in my previous videos. This time I'm going to look at a war game, and it's a print and play game, and it's actually free. So this is a game you can go out and grab off the internet and print it out and play it yourself. Or if you have Tabletop Simulator, there is a module for it, and you can play it digitally on your computer that way, which is how I'm going to play it. So. I'm going to open up Tabletop Simulator, which, if you're unfamiliar with it, is a program that is a virtual desktop, virtual environment in which to play games, and it comes with things like chess and some card games and things like that. Basic board games and so on. There's a relatively limited selection of built-in stuff, but through Steam Workshop, many people have created a lot, and I mean a lot, of modules for other games, because it can, if you have the design ability to create the assets and put them into the Tabletop Simulator, you can create almost any kind of board game there is, and people have done that. So everything from Euro games to basic games like the traditional Monopoly and other board games like that, to war games, of course. And this game that I'm going to show today is a war game. It's a solitaire game. As I said, it's free. It's print and play. It's relatively simple in terms of mechanics, but it's fun, and it's more of a narrative experience because it's a solitaire game. A lot of solitaire games tend to be narrative experiences. And you get a little bit out of it that way, as opposed to trying to outwit your opponent, because in a board game setting it's difficult to have an artificial opponent be capable of giving a good contest against a thinking human being. So I don't want to get too bogged down in introduction. I'm going to load up Tabletop Simulator. I'm going to play this game. I will provide a link in the description so that if you enjoy this game, you can grab it. As I said, it's free. So you're definitely going to get your money's worth and then some. This is a good game, and hopefully, after this, you'll pick up a copy yourself, because it's very easy, as I said, and enjoy it. So without further ado, here's a look at Bomber Boys. Okay, so here it is, Bomber Boys, a World War II bomber solitaire game. The game was designed by Steven Aramini, and the graphic work was done by Mike Haught. And hopefully I got their names right. But let's open this up in Tabletop Simulator and take a look and see what it's all about. Okay, so here we are in Tabletop Simulator with the Bomber Boys module loaded. So I'm not going to go into too much about Tabletop Simulator itself. Check it out on Steam if you are interested in it. It is a virtual desktop emulator, I guess. People build modules, so you can build modules yourself to basically play games on the computer, just like you would in Vassal or Cyberboard or Sun Tzu or whatever it may be that you prefer playing with. Just to kind of go over what the game is about, this game does come with the rules right here inside the module, so you can flip through the rules page by page, go through everything. Up here we have our missions. There are 5 missions in the campaign that comes with the game. ranging from a 1-star difficulty milk run all the way up to a 5-star difficulty a run on Berlin. So we'll just look at the milk run. I just want to keep things simple. I won't go through the entire game. I'm just going to kind of hit how things work, show a few examples, and try to keep this relatively short. So I'm going to grab this milk run, and I'm going to drag it to our bombing run deck here. So this is our main play area. We have a friendly area where I'm going to flip cards into, and an enemy area where I'll put the enemy fighters and flaks that appear from our deck. When I pull them out of here, they'll appear. I'll move them over here. We have a chart showing our aircraft and positions, and we'll be able to place damage tokens. Here we have minor damage. If an area gets hit twice, it becomes a major damage. If you use all these major damages, you get 5 major damages. Your aircraft will be destroyed. If that will lose you the mission. Having all 4 engines be destroyed, taking major damage, will also destroy or end your mission. A plane without engines cannot fly. And you have 2 pilots, a pilot and a co-pilot, and if they're both eliminated by taking 2 damage, then the plane obviously cannot fly. Without pilots, the mission's over. You lose. So that's kind of it in a nutshell. And then you also have these crew members, and I'll go through this here in a second, but each of these 10 positions inside the plane itself has a crew member, and each crew member has an ability. And in some cases, in fact, all the cases except the pilot and the co-pilot, they also have a gun that they can crew. And each gun has a firing arc and can fire either high or low or both, depending on the gun's location. So when we look at our mission card here, it tells you have a briefing, and then it will also tell you what cards you need to pull out of the various decks at the base deck at the top of this screen. 3 flak, 6 enemy aircraft, random, 4 events, random, 4 items, random. Shuffle them all together, drop them on top of this after we flip it over to its target side. So this is the target side, and these dice will indicate the rolls you need to damage the target. If you can match all 5, you destroy the target completely. And we'll talk about that too, but first, here are our flak cards. So there are actually only 3 of these. Again, if we hover over the deck, you can see it says 3 there. I'm sure it's kind of small, but that would indicate that there are 3 cards in this deck. Similarly, if we were to kind of come up here, you can see that I hope possibly you can see it says 8, 7, and 7. So that's how many cards are in these decks. So here we have our aircraft deck, our events deck, and our items deck. And actually when you rotate it up, it actually kind of hides the word, which is a little weird, but that's why I kind of keep it at this little slightly larger angle than looking directly down, although I would actually probably prefer to look at it directly down, like I was looking down at a tabletop. Excuse me. So we are supposed to take 3 flat cards, so I'm going to actually flip these, and I'm going to flip each of these decks, and I'm going to shuffle them, and you'll see when I shuffle, you can see that indicates that I'm shuffling these decks, and then I'm going to draw. So we are supposed to take 6 aircraft, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Just to make sure there are 2 left, that is correct. So we're supposed to take 4 of these. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 4 of these. 2, 3, 4. So now we have a total of 17 cards. 3 flak, 6 aircraft, that's 9. 4 events, 13. 4 items, 17. So that is correct. I'm going to shuffle them again 3 times. Now I'm going to pick up the whole deck and move it to be on top of our our target. And now this is our bombing run deck, okay? So this will be the deck from which we're going to draw cards to actually complete our mission. So the next step would be to actually draw a first card here. But before I do that, I just want to explain some things about the dice. So you have 5 dice as the bomb crew, and then a damage die here, a 12-sided die, which equates to a position here on your aircraft. So 1 through 10 are positions inside the fuselage, crewed positions, and then 11 is your left wing engines, and 12 are your right wing engines. The enemy has 2 dice. Even if we were to have 3 bogeys and maybe a flak as well, they still only roll 2 dice. So let's get this started here. So I'm going to draw. I draw a card into the friendly box. This is just how I do it. Doesn't really say, but I then flip it. So now this is an item. So this is actually a beneficial card to draw. So when you draw an item or an event, you have the opportunity to either rally or to use the card or keep the card. Depends on if it's an event or an item. So in an item, if you're not going to use it right away, you can keep it and use it when it becomes applicable. So each time you take damage this turn, you may re-roll the damage die, which allows you, if the enemy rolls a 6, which is typically high damage, then you would be able to say, I'm going to use this card and re-roll, and then maybe they roll something lower and you take less damage. So that's an item I would typically keep. Rallying is a way to restore your crew to active status. When their cards are facing up like this, that means they're active. As I mentioned earlier, they have actions they can take. So for our navigator, for example, he has a course correct ability, which allows you to actually take a minor damage to your engine, and you can ditch the top card off your bombing run deck. So what that would do is, if you know you've only got 1 card left, and it's easy to count cards in this game, I guess, but if you knew that the next card was probably going to be an attacker, you could say, I'm going to ditch that card. I'll take 1 damage to an engine of my choice, and that way you can actually get to the bombing run sooner. Okay, so that would be what that ability. And if I were to do that, then his card gets turned to the side like this to indicate that he is now exhausted, and I would need to rally to get him back to his active status. So that's what this means when it says take item or rally. So since I'm choosing to keep this item, I can't rally. I don't need to rally because we haven't done anything yet. And items and events, when you draw one of those, there's no combat that round. So we will fly on, draw another card, flip it. Enemy flak. So we know we have 3 flak cards in here. What a flak card does is it fires at your bomber, obviously. And typically, you'll see this when we draw an aircraft. In this circle, there will be a number. 1 through 4, I believe, is the range. And that's their initiative number. And you compare that to how much initiative you yourself will have, and you can decide your own initiative with your dice. So you have 5 dice. If the enemy had, say, 3 initiative and you wanted to match their initiative, because if you match their initiative, you attack first. Match or exceed. So you could say, okay, I'm going to match their initiative. You'll take 3 of your dice and put them in the initiative box over here, right here. And that means you're only rolling 2 dice for damage for your guns, but you get to roll first. And then if you were to exceed their initiative, so if they had a 1, say, and you said, oh, I'm going to go with initiative of 2, then you get an actual focus token, which is this token here, and that adds 1 to your die roll of the die of your choice. So if you rolled a 5 maybe and you needed a 6 to do 3 damage to the enemy, this would be a good time to have that focus in hand, and that lasts for just the current round. Same thing on the other side. If you have an enemy who's a 4 maybe, but you want to fire 2 of your guns, then you're only going to have 3 initiative. They will get a focus addition of 1 to their die roll. So that's where some of the strategy comes in this game. Flak has essentially no initiative. They always fire at the end of a turn. So I cannot do anything to them, although I can, once I roll it, I can see if I want to reduce or re-roll the damage die. I also have some crew abilities that can negate ground attack. So, for example, the radar operator has a evade action which reduces the value of a die from a ground attack enemy by 2. The pilot has the same thing, so you can actually use both of them in one single round. So if I roll a 4, which would be 2 damage here, I can actually use both those and drop this down and to basically evade the damage. So since I can't attack, because you cannot attack a flak card, I just need to resolve their attack, and they use these red die. So I'm going to take the red die. I'm going to roll it. I pulled a 5, so that's bad because that would be 2 damage to my bomber. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to negate that by using my radio operator and my pilot, turn them to the side, and use their abilities to evade that flak and basically take no damage, because this becomes a 1 and you needed a 2 to do 1 damage. And then it says in the bottom of the card, discard at the end of the turn. So we take the card and we put it in our discard pile. And we move on to our next one. I could have also used my card here, the rabbit foot, but I chose not to. So now I'm going to flip this guy, and I have another item card. So I can take this, and it says ready up to 2 of your exhausted crew members, or I can use it, or I can rally. So I'm actually going to rally because I'll just discard this. It's the same. It's essentially the same because I can use it to rally the 2 guys I just exhausted, or I can just rally them and it accomplishes the same thing. So we're going to bring our crew, our pilot and radio operator back, and now they're active again. So now we'll draw another card, and we got an aircraft card. So this is kind of what I was hoping to get, because I wanted to show you what happens when you draw an aircraft card. So here's our enemy aircraft card, and as you can see, you can either attack it or rally. Okay, those are your 2 options. This here is his initiative, so that's a 4. So this is a tough fighter. Typically, when you have a high initiative fighter, they are less tough as far as being able to take damage. If some of the fighters that have 1 initiative will have 6 damage boxes down here, you have to fill these damage boxes to destroy the fighter. So his initiative's 4, which is high. The red here indicates he's approaching from 3 o'clock, and the angle of approach is high. So he's approaching 3 o'clock high. So we have some guns that can target that area, but not all of our guns can target that area. And then when he rolls for his attack, if he rolls a 3, 4, or 5, he does 1 point of damage. If he rolls a 6, he does 3 points of damage. Obviously, we would hope to avoid the 6. 1 point of damage we can handle, but 3 is tough, especially if you get it multiple times. So he has a 4 initiative, so now I'm faced with the choice of how much do I want to allow him to do. I'm going to actually do 3, and I'm going to give him the initiative and a focus for this turn, so I can roll 2, which means he gets to roll first. And I'll put that there just to denote that he's got focus. And we're going to roll the die and hopefully roll low, and we rolled a 1, but because we have this, it becomes a 2. Still lower than a 3, so we don't take any damage, and we really dodged a bullet there, but we'll put this back. So we didn't take any damage from him, and now we get to attack with our 2 die that are left. And let's see what we do, and we got a 1 and a 5. So the 1 is basically going to be nothing. The 5, though, is useful. So again, he's approaching from 3 o'clock high. So what can hit 3 o'clock high? The right waist can, because he's got high and low and a vector pointing at the 3 o'clock side. The tail gunner can actually also target him because he's got a 270-degree arc that includes the 3 o'clock position, and he can shoot high or low. Flight engineer, he's on top. He's got the 360-degree firing arc, and he can also target high because he's on the top of the aircraft. So we have 3 that can hit this guy. The tail gunner actually and the right waist can both do 2 damage on a 5. Now we don't have anybody that can do damage on a 1, but what we can also do is we have the radio operator who has the ability to call in an escort fighter, and the escort fighter automatically does 1 point of damage. So I'm actually going to do that. I'm going to take 1 point of damage here, and the way you apply damage to the enemy is you take this enemy damage block and you put it on the box. So that's 1 damage from our fighter escort, and then we're going to have our right waist gunner hit him with this die. That's a 5. That's 2 points of damage, and he's going to shoot this fighter down. So we put this here like so, and like so, and now this fighter has been destroyed. and we can actually remove him. And since we used the right waist gunner, he is now exhausted as well, so we need to rotate him back to the 90-degree position, the same as the radio operator who called in our fighter escort. And now that completes that round, and we're doing good because we haven't taken any damage and we've actually shot down an enemy aircraft. So let's flip again. We get another one. This one has a 3 initiative. So he's 3. He's also 9 o'clock, but he's low. Okay, so on a 2, 3, 4, he draws 1 point of damage. 5 or 6 is 2, and he can take 4 blocks worth of damage, 4 shots. So now I can let him attack and rally, which would bring my 2 guys back, which would be kind of good because this guy obviously can fire at him, but I also have my flight engineer and tail gunner that can well, the flight engineer cannot, but he can fire at him because he's 3 o'clock low, and my ball turret can fire at him because he's got a 360-degree arc low. So what I'm going to do is his initiative is 3, so I will match his initiative and get to roll 2 damage die again, and I get to go first because I have initiative when it's a tie. So I roll 2 6s, which is about as good as it's going to get. So we're going to take one of these and put it on our ball turret, and a 6 is 3 points of damage, and we're going to take the other one and put it on the tail gunner, which is 2 points of damage. So we did 5 points of damage on that attack, and we're actually going to shoot him down. I'm not going to bother to put the blocks on here. He can only take 4, and we actually drew 5 by that excellent roll. So he's actually been shot down, and he doesn't even get to attack us. So our crew is doing an excellent job of protecting our bomber. And now, oops, I didn't mean to do that. I meant to do this. So we would rotate these guys, and now we have 4 crew members that are actually out of action, essentially. So let me draw another card here. So this time we have another enemy aircraft with an initiative of 4, so another high-powered attacker. Very similar, I think, to the first one. I think it's identical, essentially, to the first one, except that he's 9 o'clock low. So he's on the other side of the aircraft, so he would be vulnerable to our left waist gunner and the flight engineer. No, he would not be because he's low. So we only have one position that can actually fire at him. So here's where you have to decide, do I want to not attack and rally these guys, in which case I'd be able to attack him next turn, or do I want to take a shot at him with my left waist gun? If I roll a 5, I can do 2 points of damage. And I can actually match his initiative because it's only 1 gun I'm going to fire, so that's what I'll do. And we'll roll this die and roll a 4. And a 4 for the left waist is a 1 point of damage, so I'm going to rotate him. And we're going to put 1 point of damage on this fighter. And then we'll roll for his attack. And we'll get a 1. So again, we kind of dodged a bullet there. He does no damage. He needed a 3. So we're doing really well. Let's move on to the next one. Flip again. Okay, now we have an event, which is kind of a negative thing to draw. So this one, you can either ignore it or rally. And I want to rally, so I'm going to actually keep this card. So the next time you engage in air combat, raise the new enemy aircraft's initiative by 1. So when it says this new enemy aircraft, I'm thinking that means when you draw a new enemy card. So even though, actually, you know, if I draw another card anyway, that's the only way that will trigger another combat is when you draw an aircraft card, so that makes sense. So when I draw another card, the initiative will go up by 1, which will make it a 5, which means I'm automatically going to be at a disadvantage. So I'm going to actually ignore this event because that's tough when you've got an initiative of 4 already. And we'll draw another card, and this one's low on ammo. So what this says is, next time you engage in air combat, you're limited to rolling a maximum of 2 ammo die. This one actually works for me because he has a 4 initiative, and I'm not going to be rolling more than 2 anyway. So I'm going to rally, which will return all these guys to their upright and locked positions, like so. And so now we are back at full power and ready to fight the next one, in which case we just draw another card, flip it. Now we drew another aircraft. So now we have 2 bogeys to contend with. and because we have this low on ammo, I can only use 2, which is fine because I wouldn't be able to use more than that anyway, because I wouldn't want to give them too many focus icons. So what happens when you draw, when you have multiple bogeys, is each one gets its own die, but initiative goes to the highest one every time. And if you have more than 2, you still only have 2 enemy dice rather. So if I had a third aircraft here, it would still go in initiative order 4-3. So these 2 would be the ones fighting, and this guy would basically be ignored essentially. So what I'm going to do now, only because I want to keep this reasonably short, is I'm going to actually flip this. I'm going to draw these cards out, and I'm going to run the final battle here, the bombing run itself. So the way the bombing run itself works is each one of these dice, basically, you have to match them, and based on how much damage you've taken, major damage. So if I had taken damage, I would put a minor damage. So let's just say I took a shot to the engine number 3. If I took a second shot to engine number 3, it would become major damage, and then I would lose one of my re-rolls from my bombing run. So with no major damage, you get 5 re-rolls, and if you take 5 major damage, you're shot down. So we have no damage. I'm going to put this over here, put it back basically. So I get to roll all 5 dice because I have no. You would roll all 5 dice anyway, right? So let's just roll our dice, and now we get to. Whoops. All right, I'm just going to re-roll because that did not work very well. Actually, let's just do this. This gets a little hairy sometimes. I'm just going to re-roll. This is just a demonstration anyway. So, okay, this wasn't a particularly good roll. So we have a 1, a 2, 2 3s, and a 6, right? So if we look on here, we have a 2, a 6, a 4, a 5, and another 4. So I'm going to take my 6, and I'm going to lock this one in here. And I have a 2, so I'm also able to lock out this one here. Now I have 5 re-rolls to try and get 2 4s and a 5 with these other 3 dice. So we're going to roll again. We got a 5, a 6, and a 1, so that's really helpful. So I'm going to take my 6. I'll use that as my 5. That didn't land where I hoped it would. Your perspective, you can see the shadow. That's kind of where the dice will go. So, yeah, because this guy should be here. So now I just need a 4, and I still have 4 re-rolls to get a 4 or better. So we roll once, and we draw a 4. So nailed it on the first try. Put that down. I've now got all 5 locked in. I'm done with my bombing run. That was a complete pasting, essentially. And I get 5 victory points for locking in all 5 dice, plus 5 victory points for having 5 re-rolls. So that's a total of 10 points, which is a perfect score. Now, there's basically a scale. You know, if you drew 9, it's a slightly lesser victory. Obviously, if you get below a 3, or I believe it's essentially a loss. 0 is you get shot down. That's the only way you're going to get a 0, because you would always have at least 1 from this if you didn't take enough damage to destroy your bomber. So, you know, the next step would be to go on and to play the Nightwing mission, the second one, and there is a kind of a campaign progression in this where you carry over stuff from your previous mission and everything. But that is, in a nutshell, the Bomber Boys game. And as I said, this is a fun game. It's, you know, somewhat abstracted a little bit, but it's in the same kind of vein as, you know, a B-17, Queen of the Skies, or Target for Today, B-29, you know, type of game, where you're rolling basically for events that occur during your flight to the target. Then you will, you know, resolve your bombing run and get your score. Before I wrap this up, I just kind of wanted to go through what you get when you actually download the print and play materials. So here we have, it's a PDF file. Everything is contained in this file. It comes in 2 formats, US letter and A4. And so obviously right at the top, you're going to get the rules. And there's some nice period photos from World War II included. The design and the graphics were very, very well done for this game. Everything material-wise is just outstanding. So first you have your rules, obviously, how you set up, layout, an explanation of what all the pieces to each card is for, crew card, mission card, item cards, event cards, enemy cards, and so on. Plus, it takes you through step by step the mechanics of a turn, what all your line of sight is, high and low, your crewman's line of sight based on their position, whether they can attack an aircraft or not based on the aircraft's position and their own line of sight, how you determine your damage based on your ammo dice, how you apply your damage to the enemy, what happens when you exhaust crew, when they do an action, either firing at the enemy or using one of their abilities. Then we go into the enemy attack and so on. So pretty much everything I covered in the look at the game in Tabletop Simulator is here in the rules, of course. Good description of what each ability for your crew members are, what happens at the very end when you actually make it to the target. So talking about locking in your dice as they match up or exceed the values you need to complete the mission. Some more photos. Here's a recap of what victory and failures are, your score based on your performance, the scaling difficulty if you wanted to make the game a little easier or more difficult, and then you get your components. This is the board, obviously, with our aircraft on it and our damage track, and then you get things about the print and play pack. So here are your crew, right? These are your crew cards, and again, I really like the way these cards are done. The graphics on this are really, really well done. Even the back, I love this. U.S. Army Air Corps logo on the back. Here some more crew positions. Then we get our cards for the bombing run. The items, the events, and their backs. What you will see is that there are some more advanced events that we didn't actually see in my walkthrough because we were playing a very simple, basic mission, but you have, you can lose your escort, searchlights, and these would stay for the entirety of the game. So they make things a little bit more difficult, and like this one removes the ability of your radar operator to contact escort fighters. This one works with flak panzers, which we did not see, but you'll see those cards further down. If you lose your squadron leader, here are enemy aircraft, and then you get some more advanced enemy aircraft, which you also did not see in the game that I just showed you, such as aces, enemy squadron, the Me-262 experimental jet, and twin fighters attacking. So you would get an attack from both 9 o'clock and 3 o'clock at the same time, and you would need 7 damage to remove this particular enemy card. Then we have our flak, and then you have some advanced flak, which is the flak panzer, and again, this one goes with that searchlight event, which actually adds 1 to the attack value for your flak panzers. And then we also have battleships, which are another advanced ground attack opponent, and these would give you they would attack 3 turns in a row, from range 1 as you're flying overhead, I suppose, and then as you get further away, their damage potential decreases, but they still do have the potential to hit you on 3 straight turns before they are removed from play. So, and here's our mission cards and the other side of the mission cards, and then the tokens, and you can see the focus tokens and so forth. So like I said, all in all, this game is very, very well done. It's a good game. It's fun. I don't know, the replayability is probably pretty good because of the variety of cards. I would love to see, what could be done if this were, put out by a publisher with a lot of resources to allow Steven Aramini to flesh out his idea even further. Maybe make a longer campaign. Offer some various crew with maybe some slightly different abilities. Ace crew, green crew, things like that. I think there are a lot of ways this game can be enhanced to be even more fun than it is now. But even at this level, as a print and play product, this game is outstanding, and I give it my highest recommendation. You really can't go wrong with giving this a shot if you have any interest in the topic at all, or you're just looking for something that's fun and fairly quick to play that you can do by yourself. Definitely give this a shot. I am going to put the link in the description. And again, we're talking about, let's scroll all the way back to the top, Bomber Boys, a World War II bomber solitaire game by Steven Aramini with graphic design by Mike Haught. So for Legend Sport Channel, I'm Joe, signing off. Thanks for watching. Please subscribe. And